Everybody, it's Liz here for CRP 407 English Curriculum Studies 1. This is your walkthrough for the first assessment piece. We're here on Blackboard under the assessment page, which is where you'll find the things that you need to complete the assessment task. Assessment 1 is due at the end of week 4 on Friday the 20th of March. Please submit by email using this email address here. Please don't use Assignment Minder. I can receive and process your assignments much more quickly if you email them straight to me, and I can also give you more feedback than if they go through Assignment Minder. I will send you an email back to let you know that I've received your assignment. Let's download the first assessment piece and have a look at what we need to do. The task aim, you're going to be using the school description that's on Blackboard. You're going to develop a unit of work and 3 lesson plans. You're also going to develop a justification of the unit and those lesson plans and the activities that you propose within your unit plan and lesson plans. The conditions for the task are that it is designed for Year 7 English, that it's following the Australian curriculum. Your justification needs to make links to theory as well as policy and practice. Let's go back to where it's talking about the school description. On Blackboard, under Assessment, if we scroll down, we can see the school context here. This is a made-up school, Hartfield State High School. You will use the same school context across all of your English curriculum subjects. It just gives you a basis and a school in mind when you're designing your units of work throughout these units that we're doing in English. You need to have a really good read of this context. It gives you information about how big the school is, the social and cultural backgrounds, the language backgrounds of your students, as well as what resources are available for you. And it also talks about the curriculum and how that's designed. Obviously, this one is aligning quite closely with the Australian curriculum for English. It just gives you a bit of information about how this unit work program is put together. Underneath that, we have got the whole work program for years 7 to 10. All schools will have one of these. It just maps out what the units of work are, what the assessment pieces are. You need to choose any one unit from year 7. You can see that most of the units are around about 5 weeks long. Some of them are a little bit longer. For example, the persuasive unit, the transforming text unit is 8 weeks. This one is only 3 weeks. You just need to choose whichever one you would like and plan for that. For example, in term 1, there's one unit, but with 2 different assessment pieces. You only need to plan for the first 5 weeks. So essentially, whichever unit you choose, you're only planning for one assessment piece. Now, once you've chosen your unit, you need to start to create your unit plan. There's a template here. There are many ways to do a unit plan. You do not have to use this one if you don't want to. It's just one resource and give you some ideas. This one is different to the unit plan that was on Blackboard earlier in week 1, and it's different to the unit plan that's in your week 2 activities. The one that's featured there is using some slightly older terminology. I've updated this one to make it more current. Your school name goes at the top. The unit name, now that will come straight from the work program. For this example, let's say that we're going to do the persuasive unit. So the unit title is Can You Persuade Me? Okay, so we'll just copy and paste that into there. You'll put your name in there. Year level is Year 7 and the learning area is English. The unit outline. So generally, what is the unit about? That's going to come from the work program as well. So I can just copy and paste that over there. The general capabilities and cross-curriculum priorities. Now those you might recognise those terms. They come right from the Australian curriculum. You can find that under learning resources, really useful documents and links. And here it is here. So the general capabilities are things that ACARA have decided students should be learning in every subject area. So no matter if it's English, if it's maths, geography, HPE, these are the things that students need to be learning. General capabilities. Here they are here. All you need to do is choose which ones you think that your unit of work will be teaching to and type them in. So I think that mine will cover literacy, numeracy, ICT, creative thinking. You know, it would be absolutely fine if your unit of work covered all of them. In many cases it will. And the cross-curriculum priorities. There are these three here: Indigenous perspectives, engagement with Asia, and sustainability. Okay, so I could say my unit of work is going to cover sustainability. I'll just write that there. You don't need to explain them, you're just putting them there. Of course, you'll keep those in mind when you're developing your unit of work, and make sure that you are embedding those capabilities and priorities into your units. The next section is the content descriptions. You might recognise that as well, coming from the Australian curriculum, which is designed along, again, those three strands: language, literacy and literature. So I'm going to go back up the top and go to the Year 7 curriculum. Okay, so what you need to do is read through the descriptions and think, which of these descriptions will my unit teach? For example, the persuasive unit, this one here would go perfectly. It's talking about the text structures of persuasive texts. So all I need to do is copy and paste that in here. Okay. Now you can't possibly teach every content descriptor that's in the curriculum in one unit. You will focus on some more than others in a unit, but I would expect to see around about 5 in each strand. So a total of around about 15 content descriptions in one unit plan, around about 5 in each. I'll come back to the rationale later. The assessment is something that you cover more in later English curriculum subjects, not so much 407. So for the purpose of this unit plan, all you need to do is go back to the work program and copy and paste from here. Okay. So it's a multimodal advertisement on the theme of sustainability. Students design and create an advertisement. So that gives me enough of an idea of what I need to do in the unit to get students at a point where they're able to complete that assessment piece. And one other point to make is that if this unit was, say, 5 weeks, at the end of those 5 weeks, students should be submitting their assignment. Okay, so it includes time to produce that assignment. On the second page, we've got the body of our unit plan. This is where we put the sequence of learning. Please plan for 4 45-minute lessons per week. 4 45-minute lessons per week. So we put in here lesson 1. The phase of the unit, which we will be covering in class. This, because it's lesson 1, we would call this an orientating lesson. It's familiarising students with the content. I'd like you to begin each lesson with a focus question. That's what we do in an inquiry approach to learning. It's also been proven by a man called Hattie as one of the most effective strategies in improving student results, to give them a question or a focus for every lesson. So for example, if we're looking at advertising and persuasion, in our opening lesson we can say, what are the purposes of advertisements? What types of advertising exist? Okay, and that guides our focus for that lesson. Underneath that, we will have our lesson objectives. Now they sort of mirror those questions. So students will understand the purpose of advertisements. Students will. You might have 3 or 4 of those. Evidence of learning is the next subheading. This is what you'll look for as a teacher to see that your students have met these lesson objectives. So can the student? Okay, and the last thing is a learning sequence. That's where you write down generally what activities are covered within each lesson. So we could say, for instance, that we're going to brainstorm forms of advertising as a whole class. And then we're going to break students up into groups to determine the purpose of an advertisement. Okay, you don't need a whole lot of detail, but just a general idea of what is going to be happening throughout that lesson. Differentiations will be covered in week 2. The resources that you need should come from week 2. It might be something like when we're brainstorming as a class, we'll use a graphic organizer to record brainstorm. When they're in groups, we might say pair ESL students within groups. So make sure that there's a couple of ESL students working together. They can help each other out. For resources, you don't need to go and find every single worksheet or activity that you need. All you need to do is say that for this one we'll need a range of advertisements from magazines. Okay, that might be your resource. We might, I've got Bubbles on my mind. Okay, we'll use that for the brainstorm. Okay, and that's what you need to put into your unit plan. Now the next part of the assignment is the lesson plan. So back up here, lesson plan template. Now there are really so many ways to do a lesson plan. I'm absolutely fine if you don't want to use this template. This is just one idea. Okay, so this is your covering page where you can record what learning styles and multiple intelligences this lesson is going to cater for, which parts of Bloom's taxonomy is it going to hit, and the resources that you'll need. Lesson phases and timing. Okay, so this is sort of your script for the lesson. So your introductory set should last for, in a 45-minute lesson, should last for around 5 minutes, and that will be where you do stuff like say, okay, well, what did we do last lesson? And you give them the lesson objective for today's lesson, let them know where you're headed with that lesson. Try and hook them in those first 5 minutes. So this is where you write down what you're going to do. Student activities go in here, so it might be bags outside, prepare, book, record lesson objective, and the resources that you need. Enhancing set is a real body of the lesson, so this is where you're writing down more specifically than the unit plan what students will be doing within that lesson. And finally, the concluding set. That will include writing down homework, getting them to conduct a little bit of reflection on what they've learnt that lesson, getting some feedback for yourself from the students. Okay, and that's your lesson plan. Now let's go back to the rationale, which you're going to put into here. So it's around about 1,000 to 1,500 words. This is where you're justifying why this unit is relevant to students, why it's relevant to Hartfield State High School, how it links with the Australian curriculum and so on. So I'm going to type a few notes in here for you about what I want you to include in your rationale. So firstly, I want you to start by telling me what the purpose of the unit is. Why is it being studied in 2015 in Australia? What is the purpose of the unit? Secondly, you need to make links to the Australian curriculum. Okay, so tell me how this unit of work aligns with the curriculum. That's where you'll reference some of these content descriptors. You'll reference the general capabilities, the cross-cultural understandings. Oops. So, talk about the strands. Talk about the general capabilities. Cross-cultural understanding. And tell me how the unit suits students at Hartfield. Okay, why is it relevant to those students? Why on earth would they find this unit of work interesting? It's your job in this rationale to make a case for why it is relevant. The theory that you're going to refer to. You can use Anita's article from week 1. There's a great book by a man called Rory Killen. I'll pop onto the library webpage and show you that one. Good books. Okay, Effective Teaching Strategies. This is a really terrific book with lots of ideas for yourself. And that will be one reference point for your rationale. Another book that I would recommend is It's by Sawyer and Gold. It's called Reviewing English. It's a more English-specific one. This one here, I could recommend Reviewing English. And from there, I'm sure that you could find a range of other texts when you're in the library. Sawyer and Gold. Okay. And lastly, when we're looking at policy, that's where you're going to be looking at the Australian curriculum for English. Look at the Literate Futures document. Okay. So you're making a case for why you think that your unit of work is relevant to kids in Australia, to kids at Harfield State High School. So if we go back to the assessment description, we've talked about the rationale, we've talked about how to write the unit plan, and we've talked about the 3 sample lesson plans. If you have any questions about what you need to do for the assignment, please ask. I'm happy to help, and I can share with the rest of the cohort. No doubt somebody else will have a similar question to you. Good luck.